So well done for surviving this long in the afternoon. I'm going to try and make this interesting, exciting, and get you all involved a little bit, because the title of this discussion is Art of the Possible. We're looking at the automotive and aviation brands that are leading the charge in the future of mobility, particularly at Bicester Motion, and how Oxfordshire in general is leading the way, and what more we can do to collaborate and innovate. So that's a big mouthful for saying we're looking at the future of mobility. So in the room, how many of you walked here today? No, one person. Okay, well done you. So everybody else came by car. Everybody else came by car. Right, so in the room, show of hands, how many of you either drive an EV or would like to use some form of sustainable transport moving forwards? Well, that's more than actually the average. Normally, it's around 67, 68%. So well done to all of you, because you are very much on trend. So my name's Amanda Stretton. I'm used to be a racing driver, and I'm now a motor industry journalist. And on my panel today, we've got Dan Geoghegan, the CEO of Bicester Motion. We were supposed to have Paddy Lowe, but in fact, we've got Peter Schroder, who's the Chief Technical Officer at Petroleum. And we have got Hugh Chambers, who's the CEO of Motorsport UK. So welcome to all of you. Now, Oxfordshire, as many of you may have heard the phrase bandied round, is in the heart of Motorsport Valley. But what does that actually mean? Is this just a geographical location, or is it actually an awful lot more than that? Now, motorsport has always played a pivotal part in redefining transportation methods. And never before have we been at a point in time where mobility as we know it is changing this fast. And there is no better real-world testbed for chasing down and developing these new technologies than within motorsport, because, of course, everybody loves a good bit of competition. But how do we actually go about creating the places, the spaces, and the opportunities for collaborating with new developing technologies to lead the charge in the future of mobility? Solving that biggest challenge that humans are actually facing today, and that is, how do we move around the planet as sustainably as possible? So I'm going to start by asking Dan just to introduce himself and say a little bit about Bicester Motion.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm slightly mindful, as we are the last show in town here, that I was told once that people are most likely to remember much more of the last presentation. So that could be good and it could be bad, so bear with us. Thank you for the introduction, Amanda. I think we're at a fascinating crossroads. There are lots of things happening in the world, and somebody said we're here to save our planet. But that's not true. We're here to save ourselves. It's an SOS, and that's a really important point to focus on, I think. In terms of what we're doing at Bicester Motion, we're really enabling the infrastructure, the place to drive discovery, to really collaborate, to pioneer and disrupt the world of transport technology, to find solutions that will enable us to travel more responsibly and save ourselves. I think it's also a fascinating time for the motor industry for other reasons, that for the first time in a century the industry's got a new product, and trying to educate us as to what that means and for ourselves, for the planet, for our own ESG values, our own sense of responsibility, has also thrown the cat among the pigeons, because that reconfigures the way that the industry is talking to us and interacting with us. One of the greatest pleasures over the last 12 years has been to welcome 50 businesses to Bicester Motion. They're all brand new to Bicester. 46 of them are brand new to Oxfordshire. So the value of the cluster is there for all to see. And we, as we sit here today, are only on 1/20th of the site that we manage. So there's a great platform to move forward and to create the cluster effect and the location that can speak but also change the way that we move.
And you've got a video.
I think we should play it.
I think we should play it.
A little taste, a little bit of background. The site was built in its current form in 1926, so we're reaching a centenary. But over the last 10 or 12 years, we've been investing around about £100 million to bring the site back to life. Let's bear in mind that 100 years ago, it was on the vanguard, on the cutting edge of technology as an RAF, and that's the DNA that we cherish, and this beautiful environment is now home to businesses forging forward in a similar manner. So let's play the video. Gotta love a V8.
Huh?
Gotta love a V8.
Well, there we go. That gives you some idea as to what goes on at Bicester Motion. But Peter, you are completely at the other end of that spectrum, aren't you, because of what you're doing with Zero. So just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you. So, well, we're based on Bicester Motion site at Bicester Heritage. Zero Petroleum, we make synthetic fuels. So we've been developing the technology for synthesizing petrol and jet fuel directly from carbon dioxide and water through electrolysis. So our technology can deliver a completely carbon neutral drop-in replacement petrol or jet fuel. So we've got a little video to kind of explain that and a bit more about Zero. So switch over.
One of the reasons this company came into being is actually that nobody was making synthetic fuels across the whole world. The magic of synthetic fuel is that it is simply made from air and water, and that may sound like alchemy, it may sound extraordinary, but it is simply chemistry.
And the really good thing about this is it can work in any petrol car, no matter how old or how new. We can even fix it with your regular fuel. It's absolute genius.
So there you go. So in line with the tradition of from Bicester Motion and the RAF, we've been working with the RAF and we hold the Guinness World Record for the first flight on synthetic fuel. And I think to date we're the only company in the world that has fueled a plane with synthetic fuels.
And I would just like to point out that the connection here is that you, Paddy, you've all got Formula One backgrounds. So all of this developing technology and the sort of inspiration behind it has come from that motorsport DNA.
Yeah, that's right. So our team worked at McLaren. So I worked for McLaren for 20 years with Paddy. In fact, he gave me my first job when I was out of university a few years ago now. So yeah, I spent most of my career trying to get as much power out of the fuel as I can, and now we're trying to get it all back in.
Thanks. And Hugh.
Good afternoon.
Hello. You don't have a video, sadly.
I don't. I think you've had enough films of cars going sideways, so you've probably got the general idea of what we do. I'm responsible for the governing body for motorsport in this country, which sounds like a very glamorous and wonderful industry to work in, but of course Formula One, which is the shop window of motorsport on a global basis, is but one race a year that we are responsible for organising at Silverstone with our partners there. In fact, we are responsible for nearly 4,000 events every year in the United Kingdom across all of the 4 home nations. We have around about 70,000 competitors who take part in events the way that Amanda has done so very successfully over the years, and huge range of different types of disciplines of motorsport as well. Of course, Formula One means that circuit racing is the most obvious form of motorsport that you see. You might be familiar with the World Rally Championship, so cars going sideways and through the forests, but you have karting and you've got drag racing, you've got hill climbs and sprints, and the list goes on and on. One of the things that is unique about motorsport is that it is something that embraces the past as well as the future. And it not only embraces the past, but it uses the past. So some of you may have been to classic car events. I think the concourse event that is held here at Blenheim every year is a wonderful celebration of static cars, rather beautiful ones. But if you go to somewhere like Goodwood, you'll see the cars from decades gone by being thrashed within an inch of their lives, and indeed last year running on sustainable fuels. So I think it's rather interesting that motorsport has got this curious sort of blend of the past, the present and the future, and that technology. But one of the things that I would point to in the theme this afternoon, the art of the possible and innovation, is that we're not dealing, as the previous speakers were dealing, necessarily with AI or the cutting-edge technology of zero petroleum. We're actually looking for how we innovate within society and how we bring a community of about 150,000 people, including all of our volunteers, on a journey with us as around us that technology changes. So we have quite a lot of our volunteer community who are quite happy using big button phones. They wouldn't know where to find the internet. They struggle to know what a tablet is. And so our innovation is of a different sort. It's actually marrying what many of you who work in the high-tech industries take for granted with traditional ways of working. So there's lots of different strands, lots of different themes that we have to bring together as motorsport. And we moved to Bicester Motion in 2021, in the middle of the pandemic. It was always a good idea. As part of that innovation, a part of that change and revolution of the governing body of the sport.
Well, lots to talk about then. So, Peter, first of all, I'm just going to come to you. How are companies like Zero using sustainable technologies to actually transform the fuel industry? And just taking that back as well, how does being based at Bicester Motion actually help you as a business?
Yeah, well, so I think this area is a really rich area for talent. So there's a lot of multidisciplinary talent in the area from the motorsport industry, not just the people who work at the company, but also the sort of supply chain. There's a very sophisticated supply chain, got the universities on hand, so you could prototype pretty much anything you wanted in this area with local supply chain really quite quickly. So I think it's a really good place, an exciting place to get the kind of diverse range of people. But I think most importantly, the sort of motorsport culture and the sort of traditions of people from different disciplines working really tightly together to solve problems quickly. I think that's a kind of culture that's hard to build. And we find that we can do that here, and we can do that in Bicester Motion.
And we can do that because we work collaboratively. Just give us an example of where you've seen collaboration in other areas that you've worked in that has really sort of moved things forward.
Well, I've got a few from the old motorsport days at McLaren. I mean, we've done. I worked on a project to do the battery packs for Formula One right at the early days, and that project, sustainable technologies again, very very short time frames. People from chemists in the battery world, mechanical engineers, software engineers, all sorts of people, all had to work together in a very very tight time frame to get things done. So the motorsports attitude, it has to be done, has to go out the door when it's time for the race. It's quite important.
And obviously, having people on the doorstep, sort of in the vicinity, stone's throw away, that is absolutely critical to the mission.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've actually found we've had people kind of apply to us from Formula One teams, not because they knew us, but because they wanted to work on the sustainable technology and like the idea of taking that sort of motorsports culture into an innovative startup company doing something good for the world.
I am going to come to the rest of you in a minute, but there's one thing that Bicester do which is, I think, fantastic, and that is, of course, the scrambles. A big open day where everybody can come, all the sort of, it's a shop window for all the businesses that are there. And I think, Dan, it's fair to say a lot of the people that come to the scramble come to see the old cars, but just explain what it's like when people come into the Zero building and actually learn about your technologies, because the building is fabulous the way it's been decorated. It's eye-catching and very engaging.
Yeah, well, we deliberately designed it to be able to bring people in, because I think, as some of the reactions I've seen here today, not everybody believes this is possible, that you can actually make fuel that is the same as you dig up out of the ground. And so I think we get so many reactions from people coming in who just don't believe what we can do. I think we want to try and spread the message. You know, it's an industry that needs to exist, not one that, you know, needs to be kept quiet. We need to tell everybody about it and get some enthusiasm and build the industry.
Absolutely. Hugh, to further foster innovation, stakeholders have really got to enhance partnerships across various disciplines, sharing resources, expertise, and things like that to tackle the pressing changes such as climate change and urban congestion. So from your previous experience, you've really seen the value of collaboration, haven't you? So how is Motorsport UK, the governing body, working with all of this, the development, the promotion, helping to facilitate these innovations from the base in Bicester?
Absolutely. I mean, I think motorsport is at a crossroads at the moment. Probably for 125 years since the birth of the automobile, it's had a pretty solid run of success, and it's mirrored the enthusiasm for consumers for the automobile as a symbol of freedom and excitement. And yet the role of the car in society is changing quite dramatically. We talked about EVs before, and driving around in a 3-ton vehicle, which is probably highly accelerative, but it's not necessarily the best handling vehicle in the world, and it's certainly not something you tinker with in your garage or you do at the risk of your life. And the whole utilitarian nature of cars now is really removing things away from cars being seen as a symbol of fun. You marry that together with the way the internal combustion engine has been sort of positioned as the root of all evil of the climate change. And, you know, and I think in reality, passenger vehicles account for about 8% of CO2 emissions. But reading the media, you'd think that it was almost 100% down to passenger vehicles. And so we're at a point now as Motorsport where we've got to make some very serious decisions in order to ensure our long-term sustainability, because I think probably the parallel that's often drawn is with fox hunting. Those of us who have grown up in the countryside, in fact in Oxfordshire, it's sort of something which has been around for literally hundreds of years, almost overnight got legislated out by politicians who don't live in the countryside. And we're very conscious that motorsport, in order for it to continue and to be successful, we need to make sure that we have a very good relationship with society. We're seen to be a good citizens of society and giving something back. And the one thing that motorsport has had over those 125, 130 years is a long history of innovation and a way of developing technologies in motorsport that then trickle down to road cars, things like seat belts, things like disc brakes. And indeed, the modern Formula One cars are the most efficient forms of propulsion in terms of an engine that has ever been produced, and largely down to the work that's been done in Formula One. And so we probably haven't done a good enough job of positioning motorsport as being that good partner in society. And in order for our longevity, we need to make sure that people see motorsport as not just a bunch of rich people thrashing around in the forests and burning fossil fuels, but actually doing something worthwhile. And sustainable fuels is at the centre of that. I mean, I think one of the most fascinating facts is that there are around about 30 million vehicles on the roads of Great Britain today. And at the moment, the current run rate is around about 800,000, 900,000 electric vehicles are being sold each year. And you can do the maths, that even when we get through the ZEV mandate, where it's going to be compulsory in 2035 to buy an electric vehicle, we are going to have internal combustion engine vehicles on our roads for the next 30, 40 years. And if we don't have a solution that replaces carbon fossil fuels with something that is sustainable, then we're missing the point, because EVs aren't going to save the planet on their own. A very, very important point. One of our little catchphrases is the future is eclectic, not just electric. And so we need to have a partnership that has firms like Paddy's with Zero Petroleum, which is pure synthetic fuel. You have another step before that, which is sustainable fuel, which is derived from organic waste. And that is a huge opportunity to modify the supply chain, and for existing vehicles to be able to use those fuels as a drop-in fuel. You don't need to modify the vehicle to use sustainable fuels. And the way that motorsport can do that is to actually showcase that, to act as the test bed. As I mentioned before, Goodwood last year, historic festival running entirely on sustainable fuels. So innovation and partnership with fuel companies, with vehicle manufacturers, with government, all of which not only sustains our sport that we love, but also gives back to society.
But you're doing more, not just the sustainability aspect as well, because you're also very busy engaging with the younger generation, making sure we have that talent stream coming in.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of the innovative things that we do, I mentioned about being good citizens in society. Motorsport is a wonderful vehicle to inspire people in STEM subjects. And one particular program that's been very successful is Girls on Track. And I think, Amanda, you've been involved in that. A really inspirational program going into primary schools and using motorsport themes and little experiences of motorsport to get girls to actually consider STEM subjects as being right for them, and seeing the potential of where it can lead to. So boring old maths can actually lead you to be a data engineer in Formula One. And I think we've seen that gender shift through those type of interventions.
Dan, obviously you have invested very heavily in the Bicester Motion site, from those old RAF hangars that once were into the state-of-the-art research and innovation facilities that we see today. How is this investing shaping the automotive and the aviation landscapes for the generations to come?
Well, as you've been hearing today, it's such an exciting time, and we've been straddling, I suppose, the responsibility and opportunity of looking after a site with lots of listed buildings, but furthermore, we've been looking to create new buildings which are state-of-the-art and relevant for use. And I guess if we look back at the last 12 months, we've welcomed some really exciting businesses, and that's probably the best way of exhibiting how change is happening, and it's happening at Bicester Motion. One of our objectives was to really partner with universities. We're on the Oxford-Cambridge Growth Corridor. It's a huge opportunity to create a technological powerhouse for the UK. But we met with, it was only 18 months ago, a company called YASA. It's an Oxford University spin-out. They wanted to stay in Oxfordshire. The technology is world-leading. They were acquired by Mercedes-Benz, including the team, which is the original team, which is still there. And so we have been creating a state-of-the-art facility for them at Bicester, which is a 2-acre building, in effect. And as you have seen recently, Mercedes is announcing its range of world-leading, world-beating EVs with 500-mile ranges. And those are using motors that are developed in Oxfordshire, and from next year will be their headquarters will be with us. We also see interesting and exciting developments in aviation. So we've just seen the completion of the UK's first vertiport, so it's passenger drone flights. So testing for that will commence later in the year. But I think a great example of the convergence of heritage buildings and new opportunity is really an organisation called Team Sport. So they're a private equity-backed e-karting business who really are focused on providing an entry point into motorsport and particularly addressing the gender balance. And that building will be finished this year, ready for fit-out. And so we will look forward to welcoming you all to e-karting in a 100-year-old building. In fact, it will be completed for its centenary next year.
So we've got this amazing site. we've got these amazing businesses ranging from sort of classic car experts and sort of bespoke restorers through to modern cutting-edge technology and companies that are really leading the way. What else do you think needs to be done in order to really make a noise on the global stage? Obviously, the scrambles are fantastic and hugely popular, oversubscribed. But what else can be done?
I think that the advocacy piece, I think is really important, that we, as part of the Oxford-Cambridge corridor, the Motorsport Valley, the Golden Triangle of Oxford, Cambridge, London, that working with our government and our local authorities is, I guess, setting a direction and making sure that the UK, as UK PLC, has an integrated proposition to lead the world in something we do very well, which is innovate and apply that innovation to create world-leading solutions. So that's really important, but it also counts for a lot, bringing stakeholders along with us, and the scrambles are a great way for everyone to get involved. And so we really work across the range of stakeholders so that we become part of the powerhouse for what we're trying to achieve.
Now, as far as I'm aware, and I will happily stand corrected, this is the only site of its type in the UK that has this unique blend, if you like, of governing body, new technology, old and new bringing together. So what more can we do to collaborate and innovate? And does Oxfordshire have the potential to really set the new benchmarks for mobility solutions on a global scale? I'll start with you, Hugh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course it does. No, I think UK PLC has done a very bad job of embracing the motorsport industry and really maximising its opportunity. I was very fortunate. I worked in Formula One at Mercedes. What is now Mercedes Formula One was the BA Honda Formula One team. And I had the privilege of working with literally some of the cleverest people on the planet. And, you know, motorsport, I think because all sport is by its nature somewhat frivolous, isn't it? It's not in itself life-changing. It's good for the spirit and good for the communities. But I think motorsport can easily be categorised as non-essential, whereas in fact in this country 40,000 people work in motorsport. It generates around about £10 billion towards the GDP of the country. And it is at the leading edge by definition of technology. And I think there's so much more that can be done to embrace what goes on in Oxfordshire. I mean, we really are the epicenter of the world. You know, it's not Maranello, it's actually Oxfordshire. This is where the greatest motorsport businesses in the world are. And I don't think we shout about it enough. I don't think we make enough noise about it. And the reason we moved here from a rather dull industrial estate in Slough is because we wanted to be at the centre of where the action is.
Well, that's ringing endorsement. Peter?
I completely go along with that. I think it's a great place to be with the technology and the innovation that we can bring from it.
And Dan, you would obviously concur.
I think it's. I think that's absolutely at the core of it. But I think there are other value adds, and you know, we're all human. It's livability. It's the ability to recruit and retain, to work with like minds. It's walking through the gate and saying, "This is really cool. I want to work here." I had that feeling when I walked from the car to Blenheim Palace, but I perhaps that's where the comparison stops. But seeing is believing. Come and take a look. We'd love to show you around and share some of the magic that is happening at Bicester, thanks to our specialists and our partners, two of whom you've met today.
Well, thank you very much. Are there any questions from the room? I know it's late in the afternoon. You're probably quite weary. So I'm going to... Oh, there's one question.
I'm fascinated by zero petroleum. So you don't do great things, but how scalable is it? And if it's really, really scalable, why are you worrying about electric cars at all?
Oh, it is scalable. It needs quite a lot of money. So if anyone wants to help out with that, I'll be come see me afterwards. But economically, it is scalable. You know, imagine the feedstocks, air and water and renewable power, they're all free. So once you've built a machine that takes those in and produces fuel, you know, that machine, you can run it for free with feedstocks. And people are very good at innovating and making, once you've built a machine, making it smaller, faster, more efficient, and those innovations will come. And with scale, the cost of the machinery comes down. So we sort of project within 10 years it would be possible to reach cost parity with a kind of abated fossil fuel. So it's not so far off in the lifespan of an oil field.
You need to come to the next scramble and have a look. And when they run their jet engine as well, which is phenomenal. Tiny, tiny thing.
Yes, shows how quickly those things drink fuel as well.
Yes, exactly. Hugh.
Yeah, I just wanted to build on that because I think it's really fundamental that these sort of seismic changes don't happen without government policy. And I think that's what's lacking at the moment is a joined-up policy on new innovative fuel solutions. EV has become the simple solution and the catch-all answer to everything. And I think you're seeing the marketplace pivoting at the moment. And those who touch the automotive industry will know that the big automotive giants are backpedaling furiously, reintroducing fossil fuel, albeit maybe sustainable fuel, but internal combustion engine and hybrid vehicles, because not only do consumers not want them, but I think there are big question marks about the real environmental impact of EVs. And we simply don't have the network, we don't have the grid, we don't have the capability to accelerate at the speed with which government policy has wanted us to do. The problem is that nothing's coming in the backfill, and you need government policy to actually advance sustainable fuels and synthetic fuels and to give them a tax break, to get investment, to get private equity coming into it. Because until very, very recently, the big petrochemical giants have said there is no point in us investing in sustainable fuel technology because you're not going to have the vehicles to put them in. And I think that pivot point now is really happening. And so any of you that have any touch points into local, regional, national government can bang that drum. We need to have a proper government policy on sustainable fuels.
That's a whole other conversation.
It is.
For a whole other day, but I completely agree with you.
I'll be there for that one.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you very much. A big round of applause, please, for everybody here. Dan Geoghegan, Peter Schroder, and Hugh Chambers.